Login accepted.
Hi all, how are you? Fine? So, not so long ago, I had an interview, and I was an interviewer. And candidate was a senior developer for Angular. So, experienced person, right? Years of experience. And for these kind of people, I have special questions like, show me how to make page load faster. It's a very important subject. And thing he said that time changed my way of thinking about the internet, about candidates, about recruitment, and almost everything. So he said that instead of using lifecycle hook, which is implementation of inverse of control in Angular, I should use native setters. So I'm going to show you two versions of this code, and I will give you a few seconds to analyze it. It's not very complicated code. So he said, if I use setters instead of lifecycle hook, my code will run much faster. Not faster, but much faster. And my reaction for that was actually like, what? And I asked him the most important question during this interview. And the question was, how? And why? So hello again, my name is Kamil Gałek. I work as a front-end developer for Big Picture. And I'm here to show you Mythical Angular, myths that are destroying Angular from inside. It's not going to be a deep dive. We've got only 15 minutes. It's rather, inspiration thing. But even if you're not a front-end person, I think some rules may apply for your world. So let's back to the story. I asked him why. Why do you think that setters are much faster than lifecycle hook? What's the reason? And he didn't know. So we started a discussion. And at the end, I wasn't able to believe him that it's faster. So after interview, I checked it. And you know what? It's not faster at all. I don't know why he thought like that. And after all, it's only one guy, right? Only one candidate. After this one guy was another, and another, and another, and another. And all of these people said the same. Use setters, it's going to be faster. I don't know why. So months later, I was exhausted. I knew that something is happening, and I don't know what. Why all of these people say the same thing that is not true. And one time, I found the chosen one. I asked him the same question. He answered me the same answer. This time, again, he didn't know why it's faster. But he was brave enough to show me the sources where he found that information. And it was well-known job offer site. This kind of articles called things you should know for Angular, most common questions and answers. And here we have our myth. So using setter instead of ng changes is a trick for improving performance. And what's more, they said that you necessarily have to mention this. I didn't mention it. And they didn't know why it's faster. So luckily for me, there are sources for this article. And I checked it out. And this one sentence was so simplified that it lost its main sense. And you know what? Using setters might be harmful. When you put the logic in setter that depends on another setter, it means that you have to execute setters in correct order. And I don't like this kind of API when you have to know how to write code, because why do you have to call two methods in correct order, right? So I started to doubt in candidates, in seniors, but mostly in myself, because I realized that a lot of my knowledge was based, I don't know, on something. I just knew things because it was logical that it works in that way, or someone told me about a feature that it works. And the only proof that I had was, yeah, yo, trust me, bro, right? So I decided to learn Angular again from the bottom. This time, I knew that I can trust only the source code. So I decided to download the whole repository with Angular and find the lines of code that are working in this particular way. And I found a lot of interesting things. I tried to focus on the things that I heard during the interviews. For example, in Angular, I can provide styles directly in the file with component using styles, or style URLs in separate file. And candidates said that using styles instead of style URLs is faster, because you have everything in one file. So you don't have to download another file. And we know that downloading is quite an expensive thing. So it was very easy to verify. You just need to use styles, style URLs, build the application, and check it out. And you know what? There is no difference. I knew that it's not true, but when you learn something from the bottom, you check everything. He might be right, but he wasn't. So another one. For example, in Angular, we have styles encapsulation. We can encapsulate style with component, which means we don't have to care about naming collisions, and we are sure that styles will be applied only to the one component. Very cool feature, but we have 3 types of encapsulation there. So we can disable encapsulation at all. We can emulate it and use native shadow DOM. And as you may expect, disabling is the fastest one because you don't have to do anything. It just works. It just loads CSS as always. But emulated one, the default one, is almost as fast as none. And by bonus, you get styles encapsulation. And you know why it's so fast? Because it was implemented in a very smart way. It's using very native CSS to emulate this encapsulation. And most of the job is done during the build, so you don't have to care about it during the executing an application in runtime. So I checked a lot of things, simple things, hard things. Some of them were easy to verify. Some of them took me weeks to fully understand what's inside Angular's source code. And I was basing only on source code. You cannot believe in internet right now. So after this whole action, I'm still in process of discovering things there. I feel tired explaining every feature over and over to the different people during interviews and so on. So I decided to write it down. So that's how Mythical Angular was born. I'm trying to solve that myths show source code says something different. And it's not on Medium. If you want to find it, you will find it here behind this QR code. It's not on Medium because I'm not ready for that. And second of all, it's not called 10 Angular things you should know. It's much harder to understand source code. So from this point, let's imagine that Angular is not existing because probably this rule applies to every framework. And framework is a tool, very complex one. And I decided to analyze why we have so many myths in Angular. So when you have complex tool, right, you have an explanation. Because when something is complex, you have to explain it. And when you're trying to explain something, you want to explain it as simple as possible. So you'll use a lot of simplifications. And this leads to myths. And you know what? Myths leads to complex tool because the complexity increases with myths. And when you're spinning with this whole carousel of strategy, it leads to anger. Very often, you're angry of your framework because nobody knows what's going inside. There are like 5 versions of every feature described, and you don't know which is real, right? And as far as we know, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And believe me or not, you don't want to be on the dark side of programming. They use a lot of legacy PHP, Java, like 4 or something. Things pretty bad for your health, for your family life, so avoid those kind of dark side. So we've got only 15 minutes, so I should tell you what I learned during the process. First of all, internalize. And I know that it's quite obvious, right? But I realized that quite late. I'm not the smart one. And this leads to the ultimate truth that only source code is we can trust only in the source code, right? And There is no other way. And you may say that, but okay, source code of Angular or Spring or something is very complicated. Was written by very talented programmers. And I don't want to read this. It's hard, right? That's why you should read it. You have to read good programmers' code to understand why they're doing things they do, right? So during the whole process, I discovered, and I'm using WHW rule. Anyone heard about this? Yeah, because I made it out. So it's very simple. It works. When you have to do something, ask what. What I have to do, what I have, what I can use. Later, you can ask how. How it's implemented inside, how it's working, how to use it. And at the end, the most important question, why? And the right question is why it was designed, why it was implemented in this particular way in my framework. And you will learn a lot asking those questions. And you can make fun of these questions. Very basic one, right? But ask yourself, how many times when you discovered a new feature of your framework, new version, you check out how it was implemented? Yeah, it's super cool. It works very fast. We like new features. It helps us out. But how many times you checked how it was implemented and why it was implemented in this particular way? It is very important. And I have an analogy for that. So imagine you're driving a nail on the building site. It's your whole work. So you're taking nail and you're hitting with something. And you can use a lot of tools, like hammer or, I don't know, rock. And as long as you're not asking questions, you may end hitting with rock for the whole life, because you didn't ask for hammer. Ask why you have to drive nails, why you have to build these buildings, how it was designed. And eventually, at some point of time, you may become an architect, because you understand that. You understand the building side. And the same for programming. If you understand why your framework works in this particular way, you know how to use it, how to get the best of the framework. It's very simple, 3 questions, right? So that's all from Mythical Angular. If you want to read it, I have to say one thing. So I write almost as good as I draw, so pretty bad. Just focus on source code, and you'll be fine. And yeah, I don't know. Go fight with your own myths. Go fight with your framework. Learn a lot, ask questions, and you'll be fine. So thank you very much. If you want the QR code, it's here again. That's all.